Hello, my friends. This is Andy Falco Jimenez coming to you live from Yorba Linda, California. What is it? 10 days? Yes, 10 days. 10 days until November 8th, when you get to save your children from the teachers' unions, at least the teachers' unions that occupy space here in the Placentia Yorba Linda Unified School District, which are the APLE, which is the Association of Placentia Linda Educators, the CTA, the California Teachers Association, and the NEA, the National Educators Association. All of them are a group, a cabal of horrible people. Just there's no other way to put it. I mean, they're incompetent in regard to education, and they're horrible in how it is they've been destroying our children over the last several years, if not several decades. They're pawns, or they're bought off politicians that have been on the school board are Karen Freeman and Carrie Buck, and we need to vote them out. So we have 10 days to do that. I'm going to do my best to keep this short because I just want to keep you aware of what's happening, that you need to get out and get involved in Todd Frazier and Rich Engel's election, and even Ryan Bent, for that matter, for the Yorba Linda city, you know what I'm talking about. The city council. Oh my gosh, I keep wanting to say chamber, but it's city council. All right. So Ryan Bent. Wow, I don't know why he just had I merely had a stroke there, but I can still talk, and I don't need a prompter to be able to get through this. But Rich Engel, Todd Frazier, Ryan Bent. We need to remember those three names and vote them in. And one of the reasons why is because, I'll bring in on occasion on these shows what's happening in other school districts in California, and even what's happening in school districts across the nation, because the NEA, the National Educators Association, has an effect on all of these school districts. So if you want to see what could happen here in the Placentia Yorba Linda Unified School District, you just merely need to look at other school districts that have teachers unions that are in line with the NEA. In California, you have the CTA. And then, like I said, locally, we have the APLE. But in Vermont, I'll just bring this article up really quick. In Vermont, they have an incident out here at a school district. Vermont school district suspends father of girl who pushed back against biological male in her locker room. They also suspended the student, the girl. Down here in the story, it says a Vermont school district under fire for allowing a biologically male student to use the girls' locker room has suspended a father from his position as soccer coach for using male pronouns to refer to the trans-identifying student. What? It is unbelievable that I'm reading the story, that this is even true, that this is happening. But this is happening. Travis Allen has been suspended without pay from his job as the Randolph Union Middle School girls soccer coach. This is a middle school, by the way. Orange Southwest School District Superintendent Lane Millington said in a Tuesday letter his suspension follows a Daily Signal report highlighting his daughter's discomfort at a biological male using her locker room while she was changing. And it goes on to explain the rest of the story. You may say, so what does this have to do with the PYLUSD? Well, it has everything to do with it, because this is where the direction of the school district would go if we had the 2.5 liberal people that are currently on the board continuing to make decisions in favor for the teachers unions. This is the fault of the teachers unions. Clearly parents do not want this. At least you would think that they don't want this. I do another show called the Fearless Man Podcast, and my show yesterday was entitled "Do Men Matter?" and the answer should be yes. But I am somewhat shocked to see that even a couple men who still come to school board meetings with masks on, or walk alongside their wife and their children who have masks on to this day, it's shocking. really just unbelievable that we have lost men who have courage and that could call themselves fearless, that are leaders supposedly of their family, that are leading their families down this hole, that there is possibly a few parents, maybe 2 or 3 parents, that are for men or boys dressing in a girls' locker room with their girls. Why more men aren't standing up at school board meetings, and there are a few. I mean, we do have a few amazing men, including the 2 men that are running for school board, that do stand up and say, "This is not right. This cannot be allowed." Like it's again, as I said before, it's shocking that we even have to say that this should not be allowed. It is surprising that at any point that any parent, that even any school board member is saying, "Hey, you know what? We probably shouldn't have boys dressing in the girls' locker room," especially middle school, when the the boy, testosterone, the energy of the boys is really beginning to hit its stride, and its beginning stages of boys learning how to control themselves, how to maintain this urge that they have and attractiveness that they do have with girls. That you think it's okay to take a boy in this this hellish period of time where they're fighting the demons quite often, that you then say, you know what? When a coach speaks up, when a dad speaks up and says, "Hey, I don't want a boy dressing in the girls' locker room with my girl, or other girls for that matter, not even just my girl, but other girls," that you then, as a school district, you then suspend him and punish him. And then you take the daughter, who was the one who alerted the dad, and they suspend her because she said, "Hey, I was uncomfortable with a boy dressing in the girls' locker room." Where have we gone wrong that there are not more men seeing things like this? Because this isn't the first story. This is not the first story that has come up in a news feed, whether you see it on social media or in a newspaper, or somebody emails it to you, or it's brought to your attention through a show like mine, that I'm showing you this. And then you could go out and say, "You know what, but I don't care about that. I just want teachers unions to rule my children's life. I want them to ruin other people's lives." That you ignore things like this and then vote for the person who supports these things. I think I say this is crazy or this is unbelievable far too much, but I don't have any other way of describing it. If you're watching this and you have another way of describing it, then please feel free to put it in the comment section. And those of you that are watching that are for boys dressing with girls, and think it's okay for them to have their wanger hanging out, or them ogling at the little girls who are changing, or now they're so afraid to change that they no longer have a place to go. The Me Too movement obviously is over, because, grown women I see at the school board meetings fighting for this stuff. They don't care about girls. They could care less that girls feel uncomfortable with a boy dressing with them, or going, urinating or whatever in a girl's restroom. That you have women, literally women. So I'm shocked at men, because men are disgustingly wimpy. I want to use another word so badly. That they're not up there speaking out, that they don't take time off of work to show up. That I'm just kind of upset and concerned that we don't have more men, standing in front of the schools and saying this should not be happening. And again, there are a few, but we have, I don't know what it is, 10,000 something children that go to the school. That's a lot of parents that aren't showing up at the school board meetings, that aren't outraged. There's a lot of women, again, that go up to the podium, teachers, female teachers, that go up to the podium and say, "Freeman and Buck are doing a great job, and we want more teachers unions to be involved, and we want them to indoctrinate our children, and to tell some children that they're oppressors, and we want them to tell the rest of the children they're oppressed, and they're being held back by those other kids. We want that division in our school." That you have women standing up at the podium with masks on and without masks on, for that matter. They get up there and say, "No, we want more of this. We want more of this division. We want racism. We want segregation." Why do we have women that are doing that? It's really, truly dumbfounding. So again, if you're watching this and you have the ability to comment, if you're not driving, please comment and let me know. Is there another adjective? Is there another word that I could use other than shocking and amazed and just craziness and lunacy, that we have parents that are fighting for this kind of thing to happen to their children? And I haven't even got to the education part. The lack of education that's going on in the PYLUSD, the lack of education that has been allowed to continue in the name of equity, in the name of instead we want to indoctrinate our kids with nonsense, that we want to be more worried about pronouns and more worried about offending somebody that's struggling with this idea that they may be in the wrong body or the wrong sex, that those things can be dealt with at home. Let the parents deal with that. Teachers have no business dealing with my children's weaknesses in that regard without letting me know, number one. And they're not to give my kids direction on that kind of thing. They're not to send them to some doctor that says, hey, we're going to cut off your penis or cut off your breast and not tell your parents. That all this stuff that is continuing to come out, that is being exposed, not only because of the pandemic, because people like myself and other people are bringing it to your attention, including Leander Blades and Sean Youngblood, that they are bringing it to the attention and people are offended. People are offended. Hey, you can't bring this stuff to parents' attention. That is so racist. That is so homophobic that they are actually bringing in and bringing up at school board meetings that, hey, we have this thing happening where boys are dressing in the girls' locker room and in the bathrooms, and they're going to the bathroom when they're in there, and they think it's okay. We have some teachers that are saying that police are racist. We have some teachers that are saying, you know what? You don't need to tell your parent that you're being disciplined for something. You don't need to tell your parent that, we call you Susie, but yet the name they gave you is Tommy. And what's happening is that people are standing up. Teachers are getting upset. A few teachers, not a lot, but a few. The teachers unions are definitely getting upset, and they're angry because they've given Buck and Freeman $45 and probably up to $50,000 now to fight against parents who think that this stuff is crazy. All right, I didn't mean to get on that rant so early on, but I just it's just when I read the story that this school district, which can become the PYLUSD, don't listen to people that say, well, that's not happening here. No, they because we have Leander Blades and Sean Youngblood is the only reason it's not happening here, because it's happening at the Chino Valley School District. I was in a meeting there where the people were fighting for more of this stuff, including the student school board member. Orange Unified School District's going the same thing. Anaheim Unified School District's going through the same thing. So these school districts are very close to Placentia Yorba Linda Unified School District. So it only goes to reason that if it's happening in the district surrounding PYLUSD, the only two people that are keeping our children as safe as we have been able to so far, still not safe enough. It's because of Leander Blades and Sean Youngblood. And this is why we need Rich Engel and Todd Frazier on there, because we have a wobbler by the name of Marilyn Anderson, who on occasion makes a little bit of sense, but on other occasions makes no sense whatsoever. She does not follow what her constituency told her and asked her what she would do when she got on the school board, and simply she has flopped on us. And so we don't have the overwhelming majority that we should have. So we need Todd Frazier and Rich Engel to get on there. I wanted to just, before I forget, because I've been forgetting the last couple of times, that we have to still be aware of fentanyl that's at our schools. This is what one of the forms of fentanyl looks like. This is one of the other forms of fentanyl. As we're coming up into Halloween, this is not to scare you against having your children necessarily scare you, but it is to alert you to this problem. If we look here, the middle little pile of white powder there is fentanyl. That's all you need to kill the average person. The fentanyl, which is over here on the right, which is next to the dime, that's another type of opioid that is out there, but not as prevalent. But fentanyl, you need very little. And look at that dime. It's about the size of the ear there, Roosevelt's ear. And so you got to make sure and be aware of that is out there. All right. So do not let your guard down. Inspect the candy. We, as a kid, even in the 70s, when I was a kid, we were told to inspect the apples, because if we ever got an apple, which I don't know that I ever got an apple, but you were supposed to inspect them to see if there's razor blades inside of them and that kind of stuff, and inspect the candy before kids were eating it. There's no more important time in our history than now that parents must inspect the candy. Wear gloves when you're inspecting the candy, but simply touching the fentanyl, it will get into your pores, and it will make you, it will have you overdose. It will cause an overdose. simply by touching it. Many police officers doing hand searches and narcotics searches have become ill, and I believe there are even a couple that have died from coming in contact with fentanyl through the skin. And so really important that you wear gloves when you're going through the candy and just look and see and inspect it, make sure that it has not been tampered with, that it's still sealed, and look for any holes that may have been poked into the packaging, that kind of stuff, if you're going to have your kids go out there and trick or treat. All right. The next thing I want to bring up really quick is this is actually just funny, interesting, but funny, sad at the same time. And some people, you may know this Dr. Nicole Saphier. Dr. Nicole Saphier is a pundit on Fox News, but she said she got this note today. My kids' school sent a note saying they can wear Halloween costumes tomorrow to school tomorrow, as long as they don't cover their face, because it will hinder the learning environment. I was waiting for the punchline at the end, but apparently they didn't see the irony in this message. And this is one of the things that, in addition to a bunch of other things, but one of the things that parents were fighting against, and that was the masking of our kids at schools. That even after it was made public, and even though parents knew this even before it was made public, we knew that the masking of the kids was doing nothing but harming kids. It does nothing to protect you. That we are screaming and yelling about it, harming the kids. That now you have a school district apparently who sends out this note that you can't wear masks because it will harm the learning process of the children. No kidding. No kidding. That is hysterical. I'm guessing Nicole lives, it doesn't say what the school district is in there, it doesn't. But I believe it's somewhere on the East Coast, obviously, maybe New York or somewhere like that, but which is the most liberal of our country after California. So that's interesting. So one of the things that we want to make sure and address before I leave here is that the lies, as I titled, are unbelievable. It really is shocking that Carrie Buck and Karen Freeman cannot run, obviously, on the success they had, because they have had no success. They had success for liberal issues. They've had success in masking kids. They've had success in closing down the schools and keeping them as closed as long as possible to appease their union leaders that they follow no matter what. So they've had success in those areas, and things that have to do with harming our children and fighting against parents. So that if you're looking at success, yes, they're successful in that. But they cannot run on anything that supports education. They can't run on anything that supports parents being involved. They can't run on anything that takes out racism or takes out the divide that can be caused through CRT, DEI, and SLE. Those things are actually harming the cohesiveness of children in a school, as opposed to making school about one thing, children. They want to make it about all the different races, about all these different genders and pronouns, and about transgenderism and abortion, and they want and pornography, pornographic sex education, like the book that's at Yorba Linda High School that we've exposed to you and shared with you some of the things that are found in that book, which is pornography, about fisting and sexting and peeing on another person, saying that it's fantastic. That those are the things that they love. And I think that it's just simply as evil as they are, it's hard for them to necessarily run on that. So instead, they have to lie about Rich Engel, and they have to lie about Todd Frazier. That they find ways to put these little, I guess, I don't want to say Easter eggs. That sounds like it's fun. They put in these little things, and whether they're doing it in social media or with the people that are walking from door to door, because of course they go to doors with people that are that are parents that really care about their kids. And so I met a number of parents yesterday, just by accident, but it met a bunch of parents yesterday. And many of them were saying, I can't believe, and it's not just those two, but Steve Slosson's camp also is I don't know, they have to be working together. The lies are very similar. And so for them not to be working together, that would be very odd for them to have the same messaging, lie message. And some of the tactics and things that they're doing are very similar. The Steve campaign, the Steve Lawson campaign, and the Carrie Buck and Karen Freeman campaigns. They're doing so many things that are so similar. It's unfortunate and sad that they're working together, that they cannot run on what it is they're going to bring to the school board, which is positive, They have to only attack the other candidates, Rich Engel and Todd Frazier, with lies. I've heard everything, unbelievable stuff, like affairs that Todd is having with one of the parents. Like, that is the most ridiculous, slanderous, nonsense, BS things that I've ever heard in my entire life. Number one, that one of the parents is under investigation for destroying signs, when in fact what's happening is that the Frazier Buck Slauson campaign, I think it's just one campaign, so I'm not going to say campaigns, campaign is putting signs on his property, and he's pulling them out because it's his property, and he's destroying them or putting them in the trash can. Because why? Because it's his property. And of course, somebody called the sheriff's department because he's in the Yorba Linda area, and so the sheriff's department controls the policing in that area. And so, of course, because a complaint was filed, an investigation has to take place. And what the Slauson Freeman Buck campaign is trying to say is that this gentleman, this parent who cares about his kids and cares about what's happening in the school district, is under criminal investigation. No, he's removing signs off of his property that not only are they just sticking them in, they're actually using tent spikes to try to keep them in his front yard on his property. And they're putting trackers on them. They put these expensive trackers, Slauson included. Freeman, Buck, and Slauson put the same tracker in all of their campaign signs in an attempt to say that, look, he is removing them because we put trackers in them. The same tracker that's on Slauson's is also on Buck's and Freeman's, by the way. And they're zip tying them to things on his property. And then when he removes them, then they're calling the sheriff's department. So that is just gosh, I just want to look for another word. It's just such god awful, evil shenanigans that because I want to cuss so bad. The old Andy wants to come out. That how you cannot look at that and say, why would I want somebody like Buck Freeman or Slauson on the school board when they are just such little children that they cannot run on what it is they're going to bring to the school board, because there's nothing they can bring. The only thing they can do is attack with slander and lies and nonsense, like in this case with this parent who's removing stuff off of his private property. That it is amazing that you have anybody walking around there saying, I support Buck, I support Freeman. And you want to say, but why? What is it? They've been in power for years and decades and we're below the 50% standard, grade standard. So we have children in the 30 and only 30 to 40% of them are at grade level in their education. Only 30 to 40%, depending on whether you're talking about reading or math or social studies and history. That the kids in our school district, which again is one of the better ones, is still below the 30 to 40. They're below the 50%, and they're at 30 to 40% below grade level. What? So tell me, explain to me, other than what they come back is, well, Todd's a racist. Todd's a Christian. Rich is a Christian. Rich is a homophobe. All these things that are lies, they're simply not true. I know the men. None of those things are true, but that's all they say. There's nothing that they come back with. Well, we've been able to increase education over the last 10 to 20 years. Even during the pandemic, what we did was we decided, we're going to go against Sacramento. We're going to go against Orange County, and we're going to open our schools, and we're going to unmask our kids, because what we found out through studies, not only in the United States, but in Europe and other places where we look at these things, Australia, and we have good information from even universities like, that are like Harvard and Yale and some of these other universities came out with studies that says, the masking of these kids is actually harming them. And instead of looking at those things and saying, we're going to fight against it. We're going to take a chance here. We know we're going to be sued. We know that we're going to be, they're going to say things on not only social media, but in the newspaper that Placentia Yorba Linda Unified School District is defying not a law, but a suggestion by the state of California, the CDC, and the Orange County Human Health Organization, that we're just going to go against it. We're going to go against the grain, because what we're seeing in these other states that are going against it is they're seeing success. They're not seeing children die. They're not seeing anything happen, but kids actually learning. They can't do that. They didn't do that, and they can't do that. And so what we want instead are two strong candidates, whether they're men or women, it doesn't matter. These two happen to be men. Todd Frazier brings his ability for understanding accounting, because he's a CPA. And then you have Rich Engel, who understands the law because he's an attorney. And he is an active attorney. He's still an attorney to this day, a very busy attorney, by the way. And much like many of us, hey, we could be doing other things, but instead what we're doing is we're not only doing what we do for a living, but we also are now really involved in what's happening in our schools. And Rich Engel and Todd Frazier, although they have full-time jobs and children and families to take care of, they care so much that they are running for school board, which who has time for that? Nobody, but they're going to do it anyway. Because why? Because they care and they want to see their kids being educated, and because they want to bring back the morals. They don't want to make these schools Christian schools. They want to bring back the morals and the rule of law back to our schools, and the understanding that boys should not be dressing in girls' locker rooms. Boys should not be in the girls' restrooms, and vice versa. Girls should not be in the boys' locker rooms, nor should they be in the boys' restrooms. That these things are super, super important. Let's see, I think I have so one thing I want you to make sure and get, and that's a book called Battle of the American Mind. You'll learn of the history of how we got here, that it's not just simply something that happened during the pandemic. This has been going on for many decades. Get the book, Battle for the American Mind by Pete Hegseth. And then we have the nation's report card, which says that, the teachers unions have been affecting our schools for a very long time. And even within the last couple of years, 2019 to 22, that they've gone down even further. 3 points in reading, both for fourth grade and eighth grade, and 5 points in math for fourth graders, and 8 points in math for eighth graders. That this downward slide is not just because of the pandemic, but it is clearly because of the teachers unions being involved. It's clearly because of liberal and Democrats who have infiltrated the Sacramento, infiltrated the teachers unions and our federal government, that these are the reasons why this is happening. It's not working and has not been working. So we need a change. If you're going to just simply vote back in the same people that have caused all this, we're going to get nowhere. This is going to continue. And you can't stand there and say, these people are fantastic. They're doing a fantastic job, because they're not. Look at the stats. You have to see what's happening here. We have even I'm not expecting you to see the print here, but this is a message that went out by Dr. Matthews that the Cal State University Fullerton, and I believe Chapman University is may or may not be brought up in this email, but it has been in social media, that they've decided they're not going to send any more student teachers to our school district. Thank God. Why? Because in the letter, Dr. Matthews brings up the point that these two universities have been teaching their student teachers to bring in CRT into the Placentia Yorba Linda Unified School District. It says it right in the letter. So the people that have been getting up in the podium, the teachers union that got up in the front of the podium, and the very few teachers that got up at the podium who said, I don't know what you're talking about. We're not teaching CRT. We're not teaching DEI type indoctrination or SLE. We don't want that stuff in our schools. They didn't say they didn't want it. They just said they weren't teaching it. I gave them too much credit. I went a little too far. They just said it wasn't happening. And they were battling against something they said that wasn't happening. So number one, you have to ask yourself, why are they fighting so hard to keep something out of the school that they claim is not happening? Well, the lie was it is happening. It's been happening for years. And Cal State University Fullerton, is so bent on bringing teachers into or forcing our teachers, our district, to accept teachers from their schools, that they're threatening our school district. They're threatening Dr. Matthews and the school board, and Chapman University, is that, okay, if you don't teach CRT and you don't lift that ban, we're not sending you any more teachers. Fine. That is fantastic. That takes all the work out of what it is that we thought we had to do. And that is to go through all these teachers that were possibly coming out of Cal State Fullerton and Chapman, that now, if you're not going to send them there or support them coming here, that saves us a lot of work, because we don't want them anyway. And so again, another confirmation that the parents were right for banning CRT from our schools. All right. So again, I said I was going to keep this short, and here we are going on 30 minutes. So 10 more days until the election. We have the story coming out of Vermont where a coach was suspended because he had the gall to say that there was a boy dressing in the girls' locker room. And so he got suspended because he called him, whatever. He called it a boy. And then the daughter was suspended because she reported the fact that a boy was dressing in the girls' locker room. And that's happening in Vermont. Again, understand that what's happening in Vermont is because of the NEA, the CTA, which is in California. I understand that. But these teachers' unions is what's causing these things to happen. If you think that it's all the way in Vermont and it's not going to be here, you're sadly mistaken. Do not wait. Do not vote these people in that have been in there for decades, thinking that, they'll read these things and they won't do it. They're hoping that they'll get voted in and then they can go back to their plan. Do not think that stops their plan because this is getting notoriety. It doesn't stop their plan. Their plan will continue. We need people like Rich Engel and Todd Frazier. All the links that you need are in the description of where you're watching this. If you're watching on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Rumble, or LinkedIn, just make sure and look down there in the description. Other than just cuss. I want to so bad, but I didn't put up my little banner that says, "Where's my little banner?" I should have put it up. That caution. Explicit sexual content will be discussed. Parents use discretion when playing this video audio. I didn't put that up at the beginning, which I should have. And I'm afraid that even though it's 1:30, that somebody may be driving around with their kid in the car, and I just don't want to say that. But you should hear the words that I do want to say. But back to men just 1 second. And that is men. Please. We have to have more men in Yorba Linda. I know that we have had some great men. We've had Jess and Todd and Rich and Chris and oh my gosh. And now that I started saying all these names, we have Sean Youngblood, of course. And a number of other men. And I'm sorry, men, there's so many of you, maybe 5 others that show up at the school board meetings on a regular basis, that out of the thousands of children there, that we don't have enough men that just do not see what it is we see. We had a riot here. And I'm sorry, I'm going on one more little rampage here. I hope my wife isn't watching because she watches me, start to sign off and then I don't. And she goes, "Oh, we're almost there." Is that some 2 years ago, it came up as a memory on my Facebook page where a number of us men and a few women went for a rally out there at Yorba Linda and Imperial Highway, Yorba Linda Boulevard and Imperial Highway. And Antifa and some other knuckleheads, BLM protesters decided, you know what, we're going to go to Yorba Linda and we're going to try to intimidate these folks over in Yorba Linda. And what a mistake they made, because a large group of men, there must have been 100, maybe that's an example, maybe 75 to 100, somewhere in there. Men decided, you're what, Antifa and BLM, and we fought against them. And men of all ages, everything from 15, 16 years old to 70 years old, I guess. I don't know if there's anybody much older than that. They even ran over some of us with their car. Black Lives Matter leader ran over some of the men in the car. And I was so proud of our men here in Yorba Linda. At the time, I was even living in Brea. I wasn't even a Yorba Lindian there. I owned a business in Yorba Linda, but I was not living in Yorba Linda. And so proud of these men who said, this is not going to happen in our city. You're not coming here and intimidating us. And we chased them out. As a matter of fact, Antifa and BLM, they went to the sheriff there that were directing traffic at Yorba Linda Boulevard and Imperial Highway and asked for help. That they said these people are going to kill us. And and after they ran us over, after they took their car and ran over a couple of us with their car, again, a bunch of wussies, I'll say, used the car to run over a bunch of us. Reason I bring that up is because we need that same intensity. We need those same men, that same number of men that are going to fight against what's happening in our schools. And you don't have to have a kid in our schools. You have to just realize that our job as men is to protect our children and other people's children. Our job as men is to protect our community. Our job as men is to stand up against evil, regardless if you're religious or not. Regardless of that, it doesn't. Sorry, my thing's going off here. Regardless of that, you are to to be the person who stands in the gap and stands on guard of what's happening. If we have to stand men outside of the locker rooms at schools, middle schools and high schools, I propose that we see how we can do that and say, no, you're not a girl. You do not belong in the girls' locker room. You do not belong in the girls' restroom. There's a restroom over there that's designated for those of you that are confused. The employee restroom, the employee locker room. You can go there and change, but you're not going to cheat a boy or a man in high school. It can be a man, right? If there's 18-year-olds that go to high school, you're not going to go into the girls' locker room and change. You're not going to go into the girls' restroom and change. If that's what we need to do, that's what we should be doing. I don't have a problem doing that at all. I have no problem setting up my tripod at the school board meetings. I have no problem standing up my tripod outside of the Placentia Yorba Linda Unified School District. I don't have any problem facing off to Antifa and Black Lives Matter at 60 years old. I have no problem doing that. Why? Because that's what I have been called to do as a man. I was born a man, and that is my job, is to protect men, women, and children. If I can do so. And that is what I'm supposed to do. So I just want to call out to the men to come out in force, to talk to your wives, to talk to your neighbors, to walk for Rich Engel or walk for Todd Frazier door to door and say, listen, I'm a father and I care what's happening to our kids. And it's my job to take care of my kids and to stand there in the gap for what is happening in our schools. Leander Blades. Hey, Leander, nice to see you. Lloyd Parker, the treasurer of the APLE Teachers Union, PAC, has filed a FPPC violation against Rich Engel. Why? Because parents are buying and placing personal signs around Placentia against Carrie Buck. Do the unions not understand that people can buy, print, and do what they want in private property? Again, another. Now, this is just using a platform to make it appear as if Rich Engel is doing something wrong, which in all intents and purposes is lying. And you can bring up these charges, just like you can call the police on your next door neighbor for having, a newspaper on their driveway too long. You could call the police for that. The police will respond, but you can't then go out and say, look, they're being investigated for having a paper on their newspaper too long. And then say that they're a bad person or they're under investigation and not give the rest of the context. This is what's happening. This Lloyd Porter, I read about this earlier, is the treasurer of the APLE, the teachers union that's controlled by the CTA and the NEA, the National Educators Union and the California Teachers Association. The treasurer is causing chaos on something that is so not a violation of the FPPC. A private citizen can put whatever sign they want on their private property. They can say that Leander Blades is a unicorn, and even though she's not, it's on private property, and we have freedom of speech. Even though Leandra, she may be a unicorn, actually. Now that I think about it. Yes, I was just going to bring that up. I was going to end on it, but Leandra beat me to it. And congratulations to Todd Frazier and Rich Engel on the endorsement from Pastor Jack Hibbs. I'm so happy that Pastor Jack Hibbs over at Calvary Chapel Chino Hills has a large number of people that attend Calvary Chapel Chino Hills from Placentia Yorba Linda Unified area. Large number, including myself and my wife and my children. And I remember when I went up to Jack a few weeks ago, I went up to him and said, listen, I have these two candidates that I'm supporting, and I really want you to know about these men. And I told him about Engel and Todd Frazier, and told him why I thought they needed to be elected, and if he wouldn't mind endorsing them, and how is it that we get his endorsement. And when I was telling about it, you just see the light in his eyes, just like he always has light in his eyes, but he's just like, oh my gosh, that is fantastic. I then went on to talk about Leander Blades and Sean Youngblood and Marilyn Anderson, who voted to ban CRT, and we were successful in having CRT banned. And he goes, oh yes, I heard about that, and he was so happy that I brought it up, and he just got so excited, and he just gave me this biggest hug. I think I mentioned it on my devotional show that I do with my wife. Is that it was the day that he gave me this hug that I'm a man. I'm a man's man. Jack's a man's man. And he gave me this hug that was so tight, and one of those hugs that goes on for a little bit longer than what you're used to as a man. But he was so excited and so happy for at least our school district, for what we were able to accomplish. And he says, man, I hope we can do that for Chino Valley. I hope we can do that for some of these other school boards. And I mentioned Orange Unified School District also with Madison, and said, we have some great candidates who are running, and we prayed for them. But I'm sorry that went on too long. But he was just so excited to hear about Todd Frazier and that he's a CPA, and Rich Engel being an attorney. And I said, we need these people. We have some incompetent people that are on the board right now that have been there for far too long. And he just says, just get a hold of Gina and let her know that I said to make sure this happens. And so I'm so happy that all this happened. But I just want to share with you that the excitement is real. This endorsement is just not one of those things where he sees a piece of paper and says, oh, that kind of looks good, he signs it. No, he knows about Todd Frazier. He knows about Rich Engel. He knows about Leander Blades and Sean Youngblood. And he knows what we were able to do with CRT. And he's so excited about what's happening at Placentia Yorba Linda Unified School District. So I think that's fantastic. I'm just going to come back and say really quickly that where people will take this wrong and lie is that they're going to say, well, see, there's proof that Rich Engel and Todd Frazier want to turn PYLUSD into a Christian district. And that is not what I'm saying. The endorsement of Jack Hibbs is from a person who loves America, who loves kids to be educated on not only on how to read, write, and count, but about our U.S. history, our real U.S. history. And he's concerned. He's not saying, hey, oh, good, now we can turn the school district over there into a Christian school district. No. And so I know what's going to happen. They're going to say, listen, they're going to cut out probably the important part where I'm saying that is not the case. That is not the case. They just so happen to be Christian. And Todd and Rich are so happy to have Jack Hibbs' endorsement because he knows what's right. He knows what's morally right. He knows what doesn't belong in our school systems. He knows what doesn't belong in regard to having boys in girls' locker rooms. He knows what's right. So this has nothing to do with religion. This has nothing to do with wanting to turn these schools into Christian schools. No, it is a fantastic endorsement of somebody who cares, who is a father and a grandfather and cares about what's happening to our kids. All right. That went a really long time. Zena agrees. And an eye roll, which I'm not sure what that one is, but I'm sure it has to do with probably Lloyd Porter, who is just a lunatic. Probably should take that back. I don't know for a fact that he's a lunatic. I'm not a doctor. But the fact that he thinks, we had to deal with it as a police officer. You have to deal with these people sometimes who call the police on for nonsense stuff. And you get there, you have to explain to them, hey, listen, it's really not against the law for somebody to be an idiot. It's not. If I and we tell them this, if we spent our time arresting people for being idiots, we would never have a free moment to do any kind of patrolling, because there's a lot of idiots out there. There's a lot of people that just say nonsense stuff, but that is what makes our country great. Strangely enough, is the freedom to be an idiot, the freedom to say whatever you want, and the freedom to believe in what you want. And Lloyd Porter, although maybe the treasurer of the teachers union and had some skill apparently, or some knowledge that allowed him to be on the APLE, in this case, he's doing something that he knows. He knows for sure. There's no doubt in my mind that he's not that stupid, that he does not know that a parent putting something on their own property is not against the law, regardless of what it says. And so there's only one thing. You can only explain it one other way. And that's the way that I did. All right, my friends, I'm going to stop before I get in trouble any more than I already am. All right. Thank you, Leandra and Zena, for joining me, and all the others who are watching. At one point, we had a lot of people watching all at one time. I know this is the one last thing of the last things. The last thing of the last thing is that one of my favorite things, and it'll happen again, where somebody will put a comment. I'm the only one watching this, so nobody else watches you. Trust me when I tell you that I get stopped all over Yorba Linda, Placentia, and even parts of Anaheim and Fullerton, where people say, hey, I watch your stuff and I really appreciate it because I didn't know any of the stuff was happening until I started watching your broadcasts and you broadcasting from the school board meetings before they started doing it. And thank you. Even the reporter from the Orange County Register told me yesterday, she goes, you know what? I want to thank you. That was the first thing she said. She said, I want to thank you for recording the school board meetings before they started doing it themselves, because I didn't know any of the stuff was happening until I saw your live streaming from the school board meeting. So trust me, even those of you that continue to write, nobody watches these things. My wife it tells me all the time, she goes, I'm out all the time. And I say, aren't you Andy's wife? And so apparently somebody else is watching other than that one person. So it doesn't matter to me. Continue to comment. And when you comment, it helps. So please do comment. I would appreciate that. And share this out. And sorry, I went longer than I promised you that I would go. All right, my friends. Love you guys. God bless. And I will see you on the next one. Take care. Talk to you later. Bye.